Let's go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I hope you hear me well with the noise in the back, but yeah, no. Okay, I will speak a little bit louder. Welcome to this session about how you can use Compose to manage your complex projects. First, who I am. I'm Guillaume, staff software engineer in the Compose team. So obviously we are working on Compose in this team, but not also. We are in charge of the Compose specification, and we are also working on dev environments, and we manage the kube cluster inside Docker desktop. So what that was the team is doing. Let's first talk a little bit about what the problem we want to address with Compose. So how can I use and manage multiple services configuration across different teams that can own their own service on each side? And how can I use a Compose file written by my teammates without changing the original configuration, but maybe I want to adapt it for my needs? Okay. And how can we share common services that will be used across multiple services, such as, I don't know, message queue, shared database, stuff like that. To explain you the different possibility you will have, we will use the OpenTelemetry demo project. So that's not too small, but not too big project with around 15 microservices written in 12 different languages with shared infrastructure services also. So you can see you can see the project on GitHub. And just to show you quickly, it doesn't matter if you don't see very well the graph, just to show you the average complexity of this project. So you have an Envoy proxy on the top that will talk to a front-end microservices that will use all the microservices behind. So a card services, maybe a fraud services, you can add the currency services and so on. You can see there is some technical services shared, like Kafka queue. There is also future flag services that would be the heart of our demonstration today that is used by other microservices, okay? So just to give you an overview of that project. So it's basically an eShop where you can buy the best telescope in the world, okay? So here you have the currency services, the card one. If I click to go shopping, I will go to the catalog services. And this one is the product one, and so on, and I can add something to my card. Obviously, you will see all the payment services. So that's, yeah, you see all the multiple layers that can be used together to make a whole application. And there is a recommendation one also there. So I can buy some stuff and place an order and so on. Which is interesting in this demo is that it's not only to show you how you can use microservices together to make an application, but obviously how you can collect all the data, generated by the microservices with hotel configuration. So you will have all the metadata and so on. And there is something that we will use. It's the hub feature microservices that allows the user to enable or disable feature flag, for other microservices. So we will focus on that one. How can we change and work with that microservices without being impacted by the other one. So just to let you know, currently the project is using a compose file with all the core demo services there. And if I go down, 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 it's more than 800 lines of YAML to define the whole application. How can I use that to just test my microservices I'm in charge without being impacted by the other one? So first, what I propose to do is just so I will switch to a tag to focus on the future flag services. And what I have done right now is just extract the declaration in the main compose file close to the source code, okay, of the feature flag services, so directly inside the SRC feature flag service directory. And yeah, but that won't be enough, and we will see what we can do now to use compose and work with these microservices. So the first option we have is to use override file. Who knows override file and are already using it? Yeah? Not so many, okay, cool. So an override file is basically an optional configuration which can be named docker-compose or compose.override.yaml. And what compose will do at the startup is load the main configuration and load this other one configuration, add the extra services added inside the override file, and if a service is declared in the both file, it will merge the configuration. So that way you can override or add new behavior to your services. And as this file is local, that won't impact your production configuration. Okay? So what are the common use cases to use override file? Basically, when you want to define an environment configuration, so imagine you have your production compose file and you want to have a dedicated dedicated configuration for development or for staging. Using override file is a very convenient tool. So what you can do is just define all the new ports that you want to add to services or different environment variable to access to your databases, because that's not the prod one, but the development one, for example, and so on. The second use case is when you want to add technical services for maybe debug purpose or profiling, tracing, that you don't want to run in production, but that you want to run when developing locally. So that will help you to add extra services to do that. Okay? How you can use it? It's pretty easy. You have your main compose file on the, for you on the left. And so it's defined a web service directly using an image, a database directly using the Postgre image, and that's the same for the Redis service. And on the override file, what you can do is just say, okay, the web service, I want to build it. And so I add a build section. I can also mount a volume, so the source code will be inside the container. And I can decide to export the port 80 to the port 88, 83 locally, and I want to add the debug trace with an environment variable. I can do almost the same for the database and say for the DB I want to run in debug mode and have the trace. And for the cache, for Redis, for example, I just want to expose the port so I can directly connect to Redis and see what is inside, okay? So the advantage of this solution, it's really easy to reconfigure an existing services, so you just override the stuff. When you want to make a very specific environment configuration, that's the right to use. And also, yeah, as I just mentioned, if you want to add extra services that won't be running in production, that's a good tool for that. The disadvantages are mostly that if you want to use an external services that has been already declared somewhere else, you will have to copy paste the whole configuration inside your override file to use it. And there can be some path issue due to the relative path that we use. You have to know that the relative path used is the one of the main compose file and not the one of the override file. So if the files are not at the same place, you may have some issues, okay? So let's do a quick demo of that. So I still have my service, my feature flag service declared there, and I have now a compose override YAML file. And what I will have in this file is, if you didn't see, there is a depend zone for my feature flag services. It needs a Postgre database. So what I have done there is just copy paste the whole configuration of the Postgre database here. And due to the Envoy proxy, there is some rerouting URL, some rewriting of URL that have been done. So to work locally, I will need to have a reverse proxy to have a correct behavior of my application. So there I will add an extra services that I don't need for the production, an Nginx stuff with bind mounts and a port exported. So let's go to the right place, feature flag services. What I will do is just do a Docker compose up. I will pass the YAML file, the original file. I don't want to show you that. Okay, sure, as usual. I forget to delete my application. So let's see that the application is not running anymore. Yeah, still running. Okay. It's still deleting. As the stack is pretty big and there is dependency between the services, some services need to wait that the other one are currently stopped to stop themselves. So sorry for that. Take a little bit longer than expected. Come on. So, yeah, during that time, as you can see, I could also have had my feature flag services to add extra port or stuff like that inside that file. That's definitely a good place to do that. Okay, let's start. So the database is starting. We will have to wait the test of the PG is ready before starting the flag services. And here we go. So my main application isn't running, but now locally I have my feature flag services running alone without any dependency of the other services. I can work by myself. And as you can see, it's worked perfectly. And I can enable some stuff and so on. Cool. Let's stop it. That's the first option you have, using override files. The second one is using extends. So what is extends? Extends is an attribute defined inside the compose specification that allows you to cherry pick an existing service configuration into your own configuration. And it also allows you to override and add new capabilities to that services. So the basic use cases for that, it's, for example, our Postgre database we just saw. I know that the configuration already exists somewhere. I don't want to copy past it. I just want to use it directly. So I can use extend for that. I can just say, OK, I want that you pick up that configuration, inject it inside my compose configuration, and then I will be able to use it. OK? So that's the first and the main use case of extends. So you can imagine share technical services, workers, Kafka workers, stuff like that with that. And the second use case you may think about, it's the init container behavior. So you can also extend a service in the same compose configuration. So imagine you have your Postgre database configured in your compose YAML file, and then you decide to extend that service and say, the second time you run it, you will change, for example, the command or the entry point of the container, and you will run some scripts, for example, to populate your database. Okay? How it works? It's pretty easy. You just have to add an extends attribute in your service declaration. Say where the original source file is located, and name the service you want to import, okay? And then you add the extra configuration you want, and depending, you have to check on the official documentation, there is some rules for merging existing attributes and so on, and depending of that, you can remove an existing behavior, add extra behaviors to your service and so on, okay? So the advantage is that's definitely the most useful tool to cherry pick an existing services, put it in your configuration, adapt it to your needs without changing the original one. So that's pretty useful when you work in microservices on microservices project, because you will use the original configuration maybe done by another team and just adapt it for your needs during your development process, for example. And yeah, as mentioned, it's very easy to both override and extend the behavior. There are, unfortunately, some disadvantage of that one. So, sorry, we don't see that in red. But if you if your service is the one you want to import depends on other services, Compose won't allow you to use that and extend it. So if you have volume from or depends on, declare on the original services, you won't be able to use it. Compose will complain and say, no, I won't start this application. I can't manage the dependency declare for that services, okay? And it's definitely not a good solution if you want to replicate multi-services configuration. So it's fine if you want to cherry pick 1 or 2 services, but if you want to add maybe 10 or 20 services inside your local configuration, that's not the right tool to do that. Okay, so let's do a demo. Up, extends. So what you will see that I keep my compose override file for the Nginx bits, okay? And what I have done is that I just added and declared a feature flag services Postgre service, okay, inside my compose file. I say this one extends the Postgre services already defined inside the infrastructure compose Postgres YAML file, okay? And what I said here is that I want to use a profile, a development profile, because I don't want that services to be up when running in production. So I want to explicitly use it when I say use my profile and start the database. So if I do exactly the same command as previously, Compose will say, hey, I can't do anything. The Postgre service is required, but I saw one in your configuration, but it's disabled. So that means that if I want to run production without specifying anything, compose will say, no, at least you have to, this service needs to be started otherwise, somewhere else, okay? And so if I give a profile now, so the profile development, I don't know if you see that correctly. That's fine for you, no, maybe not. Let me show you. Okay, that's better. So if I use the profile development now, Compose say, okay, I need to also load the services using the profile development, and the Postgres database is part of that, so it will start the Postgres database, and as previously, I should be able to continue using my feature flag services, edit stuff, save, blah, 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 okay? Cool. So the last option you will have, but not the least one, that's something we just introduced a few months ago, last July, and it was completely dedicated and that targets the microservices use cases, okay? We know that a lot of people need to be able to include definition of part of the application managed by other team directly in their own Compose file. So we added an include attribute to the Compose specification and into Compose. So that will make you easier to modularize a complex application into sub-Compose file. That's why I created the feature flag Compose file close to the source code. It's definitely a sub-Compose file module, and we will see in a few minutes how you can use that with maybe multiple sub-Compose file, okay? So that will also make your Compose file definitely easier and easier to maintain and very explicit. And in some way that will help you to address your Conway law, and you will be able to see more in detail who team is in charge of these microservices and who is responsible of this one and so on, okay? So the include use cases, definitely. The one we targeted with that feature is to be able to include a configuration, Compose configuration maintained by another team, okay? So being able to, when you develop on the card services, being able to have a relation to the currency one and maybe the payment services directly inside your Compose file, but without having to manage the configuration of these two one, without to copy the existing configuration into your own Compose file, you can directly inject them in your Compose, local Compose configuration. The other use cases we target with that feature is all the infrastructure services you may have in your application. So message broker, telemetry stuff, shared databases, everything that will be used across microservices in your project can now be declared once somewhere and used by all the other microservices. So that way you may have an infra team in charge of declaring all these technical services, and then you can just import them and use them on your own. And that's definitely a problem we had internally for the hub. We have Kafka queue somewhere and different stuff like that. Now we are able to have only one declaration of that and use that in the different microservices of the hub. Okay? So how it works? It's quite easy. It's a top level element. So it's at the same level as the service declaration or the volume or secrets, networks, and so on. You can just directly use a list of file and say, I want that file, I want that other file. So in this demo, for example, we have my compose include YAML that contain a service B. And what I have done on my side is just declare my service A and say my service depends on the service B. So I can use them directly to make dependencies between services and so on, okay? And something you didn't see there is that you can also, so you can specify the path, but you can also specify a dedicated env file that you want to use with that include. So that way you can have all the configuration for a specific include located somewhere, and you don't have to manage a whole env file with all the information inside that unique file. You can use and specify the one you want to use for the services you will include. So the advantage, you have a whole stack configuration that can be local or remote. That seems to be interesting. How can I use remote configuration? I will show you that later. It works recursively. That's something really important. That means that if you include an existing configuration that also include another configuration, Compose will manage the whole tree and import you all the services following the branch of that tree going until the leaf, okay? And as I mentioned, you can use dedicated env file for that. So yeah, definitely have specific configuration depending where you include the file. So imagine an infrastructure configuration that you want to include in microservices A and in microservices B. Maybe you don't want to use the same configuration passed through the env variable, so you can use different env file for the two include, okay? So the disadvantage of this solution is you can't override or extend include services directly. So there is no way when you do an include to say, hey, I want to change that service and so on. So you may have to use extends after to say, hey, I want to change the service I just include to add some behavior and so on. And it's an all or none inclusion. So you can't cherry pick 2 or 3 services for from a configuration and 3 or 2 other ones. You have to include all the services available inside the config file you will import or none, okay? So let's do a demo. So let's move that a little bit down. So that's still my feature flag services feature flag service compose.yaml. So you didn't see the include of the extent of the database anymore. What I have done is I move the include in the override file. So that means I can use override with include, with extents. I have a lot of possibility there. I can mix and match all these 3 options together to make the configuration I really want. That's pretty powerful to customize your configuration. And what I have done, I just say, hey, the path of my Postgres YAML declaration is there. Please import it for me. And if I do a Docker compose up without the profile, because I don't need the profile anymore, that will start my databases as usual. So what Compose does is go to the include file, see the Compose configuration of the Postgres database services, load it, merge it with my current configuration and say, okay, in fact, you don't have only the future flag services, you also have these services and these services coming from the include. And I hope that as previously, we can just use the microservices alone and work with it. That's cool. That's cool, but that's definitely not the main purpose of the include. That's fine, but what I want to do is something more, maybe more powerful. So let's stop that and take a look quickly to maybe the card services. Oh, there is a compose.yaml file there. Let's see to the front-end one. There is also a compose file there. Oh, with a lot of dependencies. Cool. How can I manage that? I just created a new, you remember the original compose file or not? Do you want to see it? You know, the 800 line of YAML? That one. I have a new version of this one. 24 lines. That's the same. It will do exactly the same. Start the same application. But everything is split at the right place, managed by the right team, without any friction between of using the same huge YAML file. And you can see on the top, the infrastructure YAML, compose file is coming from GitHub. Oh, cool. So you have all the services, yeah, counting, the fraud detection, everything is there. There is the network configuration, fine. And what I will do right now, so just to let you know, the remote include is still, it's still a beta version right now, so you can try to use it, but yeah, just know that it may change in some way. So I will use an ARM variable to activate it. So up. So I will do a compose experimental git remote true, and then just do a docker config, for example. What will happen with that? In fact, it will generate the 800 line of compose for you. Okay, so that will generate the same compose file as you have previously done by yourself. And what happens if I do a Docker compose up? So if I do a Docker compose up, so oh, come on. The Postgres services is still running. So what it will do, as I activated the include from the GitHub, that will clone locally the file and the source code, so it will be able to build the services coming from the remote configuration, and then it will start our services as usual. So yeah, you didn't see the GitHub part because that was already done on my laptop, but yeah, all the services are starting at the moment, so you can see in Docker desktop that we are waiting for. So the front end should be one of the last one, and the same for the proxy somewhere. So everything is starting. Come on. So I'm now able to go back to the feature flag via the main proxy defined for my application, but I also can go back to the main application, use it as usual, go to USD, for example, add to the card, and blah, 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 and do whatever I want. So now with the include, what we can do is just modularize very easily a huge compose application across different teams. So each team is in charge of his compose file, and what the other one can do is use override, extend, include to import the other configuration and adapt it to their needs, especially when you develop. And you now have a very small main compose file that will include what is defined everywhere else. So the takeaway are mostly if you want to manage an environment configuration or add extra services when you are developing, definitely you can use override file. That's the right tool to do that. It's pretty easy. That Compose will manage it for you. You just have to do a Docker Compose up, and Compose will see that override file and use it. But it's not the right solution if you want to use an external existing services, because you will have to duplicate it and so on. And you may have also the relative path issue. Don't forget about it. The extends, it's the best tool to cherry pick some services and adapt them to your needs, okay? Definitely, it's great, powerful, and you may be able to change whatever you want with that. Unfortunately, you can't use that when you have depends on and dependency to other services, which is not the case with include. And it doesn't scale when you have multiple containers you need to add at once. Include, yeah, that's the new baby that came a few months ago, and definitely therefore target the specific use case of complex Compose application. Be sure that you can split everything in small pieces, being able to compose and modularize your application, be close to the code source, and use sub-compose file to make a huge application at the end. But you have to take all the services or none, and you will have to do extra stuff to change the behavior when you use the include for specific services. Okay? Do you have any question? If you have any question, please go to the mic and no, don't be shy. That's good. It was clear. Oh, okay, cool. That's good news. So please come join us at level 1 in the Arbor Collaborate booth. We will be there. I will be there to answer your question in a few minutes. Please join us at 12:10, something like that. We will have an Ask Me Anything session with the Compose team. So we will be there to answer your question if you have any. So feel free to join. And if you need to access to the new Docker build feature demo during the keynote, just scan use this bear code and ask for your early access. Thanks.